couple people that voice some criticism that like, hey, what does the label actually do for the song? And it's a completely fair point, and all I can say to that is we're very upfront about it. We make clear why we do it and what benefits to it are. And basically, it's up to you if you want to do it or not, right? It's not like we force anyone. Like, that's just the way we play it. And there are huge benefits that we can measure, and it does quite a lot for us. And that's just how it is.
That's just how it is.
Stolen money, abuse, bullying, and more. This video will serve as an analysis on Finn, the furry fandom's self-proclaimed furry music savior, and how they had their fate sealed with a poorly managed music festival, traumatizing all the biggest artists on Finn's own furry music record label, with the sheer unprofessionalism on display. Not before looting those same artists' hard-earned streaming revenue and deactivating their personal social media accounts to avoid accountability. Of course. And as such, I don't want or need to go into the inner workings of Aural Alliance or do a first-hand account of what exactly went down at Aural Alliance Festival. As many have already, and those people were the artists, some soon-to-be former, on the label who performed at the inaugural fest in Germany. So they already covered the ins and outs, and I'll be linking all their public documents in the description below so you can read them at your leisure to get a fuller picture of what exactly happened here. Though I will be including relevant screenshots in the video when necessary. I am not making this video with the goal of retelling other people's trauma for content. I wanted to make this video to condense the truths and verifiable claims made against Finn, and add my own experiences with them, as well as call out the people who platformed this narcissist. So hang on, we'll get there. Anyway, let's just roll the intro and get right into the video. This one is gonna be a doozy. Before we get into it, longtime viewers know that I plug myself as the sponsor when handling controversial fandom topics and personalities such as this. But especially given that this is about music in the furry fandom, it's something I can't in good conscience keep my mouth shut about, as one of the furry fandom's most prominent musicians. So if you want to support me and my existence as a furry within a fandom so hell-bent on destroying itself with its primal need to allow grifters to go unchallenged, why not consider joining my Patreon? Even just hitting the like and subscribe buttons goes a long way. Furry content is rarely promoted in the algorithm, so engagement is very much appreciated and crucial. Thank you, and on to the video. Hello, furry music fans. It's me, the fandom's #1 Civet pop star, here to formally declare the end of Finn's furry music endeavors, as Aural Alliance Fest came to a close, and the label's true financial instability came to light. The money to run the event was never there, and was in fact partly stolen from artists on the Aural Alliance label to make up the shortfall. Turns out relentlessly begging for donations and pretending that everything will shake out in the end is not a business plan. And of course, forcefully grabbing your partner in front of all the artists you just spent the last few days schmoozing with will only permanently and irreparably change their comfort level on ever working with you again, as it rightfully should. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Who is, or was, Finn? Well, Finn, or Trash Panda, as they were known online, is a 26-year-old baby fur from Germany, armed with a degree in marketing and just one real-life furry convention's worth of experience. Finn had taken it upon themselves to start a furry record label. Again, giving me a serious feeling of deja vu, as I continue to be the only furry seemingly capable of remembering things that happened more than a few weeks ago. Because years before Aural Alliance was a thing, there was Fuzznet. And I read from one source that Aural Alliance was actually founded in the same year that Fuzznet ceased operations. The only real difference is that they're now more publicly begging for financial aid under the banner of being socialist, using those contributions as a smokescreen to hide their lack of any real revenue, but using snazzy graphics like this to hide the fact they earn virtually nothing in sales or streaming from artists this small. This wasn't a business. This was a donation pyramid scheme, and it wasn't a socialist co-op, because it was all tied to the bank account of one individual, Finn Raccoon. This business model was described in the old Fuzznet website bio as basically being a charitable service.
In the sense
Yeah, that's how this raccoon sees themselves, as they graciously give away other people's money. Finn's biggest contribution to the furry music scene was to say that furry music could just be any music made by someone that self-identifies as furry, regardless of whether the music is actually furry in some way or not. They publicly made fun of my assertion that for music to be furry, it needs to have at least one or multiple of the following: a furry artist musician name, furry artwork, or furry musical themes, which is called effort. Not everything a furry touches becomes furry just because a furry made it. Is this sculpture furry? Because it was made by a furry artist. Finn went to such great lengths to strip the cartoon animals part of furry music away that they even admitted to signing at least one non-furry on their supposedly furry record label.
Furry music, basically. But nowadays it's kind of just like musicians who happen to be furries. So that's a clear distinction here.
That's awesome.
where like it's like the whole label isn't just about like all the single furries, that kind of like those kind of tracks, but like just actual producers, just actual musicians who happen to be within the furry. Although we actually open for like non-furries as well. Like we do have one non-furry artist now.
Oh,
And
really?
a couple who are mostly just kind of adjacent, but yeah, we're getting out there, and we mainly
What purpose does that serve? Maybe using cartoon animals is the point of being furry? Who cares if we're ignored by the record industry at large? It's such hypocrisy! I find it especially weird because these are usually the same people screaming from the rooftops to keep furry weird and non-corporate. Yet their own record label seems to be towing the line and altering the definition of what is furry music to suit their needs. Enjoy this brief montage of furry music released through Aural Alliance, set to some actual furry music.
All the single furries.
But if you really want to know what kind of a person Finn is at their core, just remember that they are a marketing major whose first foray into the furry fandom was them creating a Twitter account for people to anonymously submit their secrets to that they would then post.
So, to get back to Berley's question, what was the most crazy thing that was there?
someone literally admitting to murder.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no. Oh, sure.
Well, as you said, if you make something anonymous that they can just go around and say things, then they're gonna do it.
But before Aural Alliance Fest, there actually was another attempt at a concert earlier this year. A smaller event in New York that started with 3 furry musicians and 1 well-known fandom grifter that had to move days before the event because the original venue apparently decided to charge them more at the last minute. Now, there was a massive back and forth on Twitter about this, the venue even getting into the replies to defend themselves to explain how they felt that they would need more security for a furry event. But no one stands a chance against Finn's mob of blind support. But the event did happen. The photos on the website don't look all that impressive, and there's not much to be found on social media about it. Looks like they got about 10 people. But hey, there are people. One more claim to call out before we get to the serious stuff. Aural Alliance proudly tweeted back in May that they'd be paying all performers at Furry Weekend Atlanta 2024 as a community statement regarding how FWA is more than happy to pay upwards of 5 figures to either non-furry or furry adjacent talent just to perform at the convention. This post was of course met with rapturous applause in the form of likes, shares, retweets all over furry social media. And while I have confirmed with at least one DJ that they were paid the promised $200, bear in mind this isn't money the furry label actually earned. Finn was just redistributing money the label had received via donations to perform this public spectacle. which may have been why they didn't have the money to actually pay for the event they ran later in the summer. These dominoes had been toppling for quite some time. It was inevitable that things would go wrong. They overpromised and overextended themselves to appear big-hearted with deep pockets to impress the fickle furries on social media. I think my favorite example of this financial mismanagement was from the Aural Alliance Fest itself, where someone donated $1,000 to help them with their event costs, which Finn then used to pay for $1,000 worth of free drinks for the people that attended. Remember, it's always other people's money. Now, let's get to the cold hard facts concerning the actual numbers. Spotify changed its royalty distribution system at the start of 2024, making it so that artists are not paid until they reach at least 1,000 streams. So if you're gonna start a label and fill your roster with primarily small, niche, furry artists, the amount of money you're making from streaming is incredibly limited and virtually non-existent for anyone that isn't a big artist. We're talking 0.003 cents per stream on a good day. A big part of Aural Alliance's so-called socialist strategy was that artists wouldn't withdraw their earnings for the good of the collective.
One thing you have to keep in mind that like with everyone we accept and everyone that gets eligible for the payment, like we basically do it with a monthly opt-in. Like every cycle you can opt in if you actually do want to get money or not. So the ones who are financially well off enough that they like don't need like 20, 30 bucks extra or something and just wanted to give it to the rest of the team, they can just do so, right? They don't have to be within the payment cycle.
Okay.
And through this revenue sharing program,
the remaining revenue was distributed evenly among the remaining artists.
If someone else comes in, you basically dilute the pool a bit, right? So you have more artists that are eligible for the same amount of money, and you kind of have to share the same amount of pie now with the same, like with more people.
That was the biggest selling point behind the whole socialist slogan. Meeting artists like outspoken Aural Alliance festival performers, Ida Deers, or Goji, would be handing over chunks of their already paltry streaming royalties to artists who have virtually no following outside of a Discord server. Yet they get an equal amount of pay because they're on the same label. Is this socialist? What about when Finn went on a podcast and said recently that the artists can now choose who to share their royalties with? Is that socialism?
Artists themselves can actually then choose with whom they're going to be sharing their revenue, basically.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Interesting.
So, yeah, you kind of just want to build a bit of a connection with all that stuff. So like,
Now, I'm deeply curious as to what distributor Finn used with Aural Alliance, as I know for a fact that they used DistroKid when it was Fuzznet Music, which happens to be the distributor that I've been using for years. Which is not a bad option in terms of cost, given that you pay a yearly fee for unlimited artist and song uploads, as opposed to charging per song. But whatever service they transitioned to apparently promises to keep the songs up forever, even after a potential label demise, which is a thing that DistroKid does not protect for. You have to pay extra for that. Worth mentioning then that there are still countless songs from the Fuzznet era that are still not back up on streaming or online at all, many of which were even mentioned and used in the Misha B. Barkin video about Fuzznet. Songs that are just gone because these poor furry creatives actually trusted Finn to put their music online for them. But a queer thing is that Finn had said the difficulty in distributing the revenue was something they needed an accountant for because of its complexity.
previously we did it where every artist was paid individually based on the number of streams they had and everything, which for one was kind of hard to track, like with so many artists at some point. Like it just was a lot of work to just do that dedicated. Probably would have been something we would have needed an account, like a proper dedicated accountant for.
And I've done a shared revenue release on DistroKid before, so I know how it works. I can just click a drop down for each released artist and see a total instantly. So did they just not know that's a feature on the service they used? Or are they squirreling away some of the money? I can use this point of trust to transition into the next segment of the video, where I call out many of the fandom commentators that platformed Finn, and were in part responsible for the reputational repair that made Finn seem like a competent business owner instead of a hollow buzzword machine. Namely people like the aforementioned Misha B. Barkin and fellow Good Furry Award winner Sooooooo Dole. Both of these bad dogs use their platforms to spread Finn's lies about how the supposed socialist co-op would work. Both went on record to say they were good friends while doing so, and both, either directly or indirectly, referenced me and my ongoing criticism of Finn's business ventures. Sooooooo even went so far as to call me a menace to the furry music community. And to that I just gotta say, how dare you? I've been alone all these years in publicly pointing out the many glaring problems with Finn's business models from venture to venture, and I was just ignored because I didn't kiss ass enough to become friends with the well-paid popufurs and their big fandom audience. So I can only hope this video reaches their audiences, and their fans realize they can no longer trust them on any matters concerning their friends in the furry fandom, or should at least think twice before listening to any endorsement these two have about a friend ever again, as it's clear that any existing friendships cloud their ability to be critical when platforming them. I don't care how far back your history goes with someone. If you are using your platform to endorse and encourage what ends up being a fraudulent business that ends up hurting dozens of real creatives in the fandom that you are a part of, then you should be held accountable. I expect full apologies from both these creators, and perhaps even an invite to Misha's poorly researched podcast, just so he has a chance to redeem himself with someone I'm sure he perceives as an easy target. Go hard on me, Misha. I can take it.
Yeah. Speaking of Clace, the next part does actually involve Clace. Someone who has made music with Cassidy, and I guess a game had their music or something like that.
Yes. Well, Clace is, if you don't know who Clace is, he's the developer of Winds of Change and the one before Winds of Change.
Oh.
He made those games.
Oh, shit. Okay. So, yeah.
Cassidy does have a song on Winds of Change, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, and Misha, running out of money is not fizzling out.
Just for them to sit there and gloat about it and just be like, oh, yeah, you know, Fuzznet was a catastrophic failure. And it's like, no, it fizzled out, and you've taken what you learned from that and are applying it to this and helping musicians again.
Are you serious?
Just FYI, either bother doing a Google search every once in a while, or just stop making content. Please, you're making us all dumber. In fact, because I've found the unchallenged claims Finn has made in their numerous podcast appearances to be so egregious, I'm derailing this video to devote this next section to debunking and explaining the buzzword speak and empty promises the German Raccoon is famous for. There's even some parts where Misha accidentally does journalism. Let's just try to do this quickly. Hey guys, so it turns out this section ended up being a lot longer than I had expected it to be, and so it's going to get its own separate video, where I'll go over every single podcast appearance that the Raccoon made, I'll go over the bad blog from the Bad Blue Dog, and all that. Consider it bonus content to flesh out this story, but I liked the length of this video as it was, so we'll just leave this as it is, and that'll be a separate thing, okay? So, yeah, anyway, back to the main topic. Now, amidst all this online drama, I've unfortunately been reminded that we live in a hyper-online society where every terminally online Gen Zer thinks they're a wholly unique snowflake and that their traumatic experiences couldn't possibly be shared by anyone else. Certainly not someone they don't like. I guess I have to be the one to break it to these children that just because you've only now discovered the pattern of behavior surrounding a person that many spent the last 4 or so years worshiping, that does not negate the very real experiences had by me and many others before your revelation. Finn would whip their Discord simps into attack dogs with the sole goal of damaging reputations and destroying people's convention-going experiences from around the world if they ended up on their shit list. Always quick to turn on people in the public eye if it meant more engagement. Just like how they went from praising to condemning the channel's favorite recurring villain, Tiger Cub, after their gross pattern of behavior became the Twitter discourse for the week. It doesn't surprise me it took Finn literally outing themselves as an unstable abuser for people to finally throw them in the trash like they deserved for so long. Real life sure is a lot different from a Discord server, isn't it, Finn? Now, I'm gonna use my own experience with the Trash Panda as my primary example on how they treat people. I've been on the receiving end of Finn's hate ever since I didn't agree to publishing my original music with their first failed label. Finn was more than happy to court me as an artist for Fuzznet back in the day, which I entertained, but I was only willing to put instrumental tunes on there, as I made very clear that I was uncomfortable with putting another artist's name on work that I took very seriously and was very personal to me. They clearly knew I was hesitant, and could probably tell I wasn't planning to release any of my A-tier material with them, if anything. When I brought up Prince's record contract and how he got everything he wanted without any interference from the label, that shut Finn up. But I did make something of a concession, and allowed them to upload my song, You Don't Belong in This World, to their YouTube channel, using their brand's signature, incredibly generic, and not furry stock photos, which is still up on the rebranded Aural Alliance channel. It only further added to my suspicion of Finn when I realized this changing YouTube channel had actually started life as a personal channel for Finn themselves. But the real ugliness began in August 2023, where I made Twitter comments criticizing the popular, for some reason, VTuber streamer JT Wusky for fantasizing about having an audience for music that he hadn't even bothered to create yet. Finn seized upon this to do a call-out tweet and cash in on my name's continuous virality, before going out of their way to hound Tails and Tornado's FurCon in Tulsa into removing my already approved events. And they succeeded. Until the con started, and attendees actually began demanding that my long-running game show Survivor be reinstated on the schedule. And it was! But imagine, for a second, how fragile our cons are if they can be bullied by a German crybaby from halfway around the world into changing the panels run by a Canadian that has gone to their convention 3 times, flying from Vancouver to Oklahoma out of my own pocket, specifically for their event. Finn contributed nothing to their con but hate, and I had contributed 3 years of panels and volunteering. It's truly disgusting and has changed my views on the fandom a lot. Seeing our beloved institutions cave to such petty and unfounded online pressure from people who may never even set foot there, time after time, is just pitiful. How are a person's IRL contributions ever supposed to outweigh a barrage of hate mail triggered at the behest of any egomaniac with a big enough Discord server? Absolutely pathetic. All I can say is that I've been wary of this Trash Panda since day frickin' one. And I can actually say this from experience, as I can sort of relate to the desire and want to help creative people with releasing stuff under the banner of a larger collective. When I was in middle school, actually, I made a YouTube channel. Let's call it the Cassidy channel, so I don't spoil the surprise. Basically, I did the same thing Finn did, or tried to do. I went up to my friends, asked if they wanted to collab and make videos together, and posted them all under one channel, one that bore my name. It was just something I wanted to do for fun, because I'm a creative person with a drive to make art and a want to help people I thought may have been too scared to put themselves out online. It never had any hope of making money, but after a few years of doing it, I realized that investing my time and energy into trying to get other people to be creative was exhausting. So I stopped and focused fully on me. Then by the time I was leaving high school, I had my furry identity all figured out and decided to go all in on being a furry musician within this fandom, working and saving money to go to a real recording studio to get my music as professionally sounding as possible, then paying a distributor, DistroKid, to release it on all platforms for me, so I know all the distributor ins and outs as an independent musician. I had to beg people like Foxamore and Tanya Song to even get their music up on streaming, because many of the older furs just don't grasp that, unfortunately. The way most people these days consume music is via streaming. Selling CDs at cons is nice, but you have to make sure that your catalog is accessible to everyone. I knew that Finn did not need to list the label as an artist, be it Fuzznet or Aural Alliance, in order to take a cut of revenue, yet they insisted on it anyway, and still use it as a selling point to this day, saying that it would spread the success of anyone that happened to have a viral hit. Branding work made by other people and real creatives with Finn's stupid logo. I hate how they refer to recruiting artists for the label as rounds, like it was reverse investing. I hate hearing the way it got talked about on podcasts, saying they were doing something for creatives so they could create freely.
Creative people and like artists should just be able to focus on their damn creativity, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Finn admits to just being the idea person.
I've always been a raccoon of ideas. Like, I'm always sitting in my, like, lying in my bed at night thinking, hey, what could I do? Like, thinking of the next cool idea that I could maybe try. I've had so many projects and service and whatever that I was either part of or made myself.
Just someone that wants to moderate chats they own and started, completely lacking the real-world experience needed to pull off such an extensive and ambitious endeavor, but trapped in a cycle of the furry fandom's toxic positivity, enabling them to get funded and receive the benefit of the doubt time and time again for what have turned out to be just poorly thought out schemes. Maybe I'm a perpetual minority here, but if a creative believes in their work enough to want to release their music online, they should perhaps be able to do it themselves and not wait for some rando furry to be like, yeah, I'll release your music, just give me a cut. There are free distributors out there to get your music up on Spotify and whatnot. Heck, even start with SoundCloud if you don't want to get your music up on streaming right away and just want to post it publicly so people can hear it and give comments. Plus, there's the added benefit of never having to worry that the head of the label you signed to is secretly an abusive dickhead that could tank the entire enterprise by ruining theirs and your reputation. But if you're an artist that isn't willing to invest into yourself to get your music out, maybe you're just not ready to release music. And that's okay. Take your time and you'll be a better artist for it. There's no rush, except with Aural Alliance, where once you're accepted, there's no reason not to just put out as much as possible to increase your cut of the take-home shared royalties. But I digress. I certainly don't know what the reach of this video will be with a subject like this. Finn even created a furry music hub on Telegram that I was pre-banned from without even having entered. And this group seems to be where all the die-hard Finn simps reside, where cowardly bedroom producers share my out-of-context takes for a quick shot of dopamine, as dozens of voices all comment in unison, yes, we agree that Cassidy is wrong and bad. And, not to brag or anything, but I do have more monthly listeners on Spotify than every artist Aural Alliance has ever put music out for combined. So maybe the conversation should be changing from Cassidy is wrong and bad to instead, we might need to reevaluate our opinions on Cassidy and admit that we were misled and misguided by a grifter. But that level of self-awareness is beyond many in this terminally online fandom, full of introverts just wanting to find a like-minded group of individuals to parrot all their same beliefs back at them in a private Discord. Okay, gotta start wrapping this up now. I did tweet that it was somewhat gratifying for me to see so many people I've had public problems with over the last few years finally facing karmic justice, and that remains true here in my closing words. Finn might be the closest I've come to calling someone a furry terrorist, and the fact it took like half a decade for anyone else in the fandom to speak up about their behavior is just sadly not that unusual. The comments here on YouTube are a safe space to share any experiences or opinions on any of the stories or people mentioned, so don't hold back. Finn actively policed the furry music scene, becoming the first person to turn it into a clique community based around their cult of personality, and using this unearned influence to harass people and conventions into submission if they did not respect it, while at the same time using other people's money and donations to inflate the egos of the artists on their record label, with the majority being small artists that average less than 200 monthly listeners on Spotify each. If they released their music themselves, they would likely earn nothing in a given yearly quarter. But since they're being paid so much, it's resulted in them having a false sense of worth and making them die-hard loyalist fighters on behalf of Finn and the record label that is paying them so much more than they deserve. Finn is not the classic definition of a grifter in our community. Ugh. Hello everybody. So it's been about 3 or 4 months since I filmed this video, and some stuff has happened that made me want to film something of a new ending. Finn decided to have another one of their famous Finncidents, and temporarily took down the Aural Alliance Twitter, YouTube, and various other social media accounts that they still had access to, despite saying they were no longer a part of Aural Alliance. This was, of course, not appreciated by the label's remaining members, and Finn was promptly and publicly flogged once again by people who just a year ago were willing to die on a hill to defend this person. And this little spat was apparently enough to finally get Misha to unlist their video on Aural Alliance. Granted, they decided to leave up the video on Fuzznet, which was Finn's first failed furry music label, but given that Misha is apparently too stupid to remember that Finn has done this same grift before, it's weird that this is where they finally decided to draw the line. It wasn't the multiple accounts of public partner abuse that gave Misha pause. No. It was the last, desperate act from a clout-chasing Raccoon months later that finally triggered something in Misha's tiny little brain. It's just pathetic. Oh, and their podcast with Finn is still up too, because only the performance matters. Making one post on Blue Sky is apparently all the penance they feel is needed, but we can't let them, or fellow idiot with a platform Sooooooo, off the hook so easily. We can do better, and these creators need to be better. Period. To the remaining artists stubbornly sticking with their Aural Alliance label mates, I get that having community is a great thing. But you should seriously consider leaving this chaotic collective and just releasing your music alone. Do it yourself. Don't rely on people you don't really truly know working together as the means to get your music out there. Take full creative control. It's what I and many of the other most successful artists in the furry music scene have been doing for years, and, well, we're killing it right now. Changing the name of the label and taking control of the accounts is certainly a step towards erasing Finn's trashed legacy, but Finn already got back in once. They will always have sympathizers because of the way they ran the label as more of a personality cult. Hello? Detaching yourself for good is the best way to move on. You'll never have to worry about being duped again. As for Finn, this long and arduous chapter in fandom history appears to finally be over. The German Raccoon has crawled back into their Rhineland trash can for good. They seem to be going through the "I just had my entire reputation destroyed as publicly as possible, so I've decided that now I'm trans" arc that their former ally Tiger Cub also did. While it may be a genuine exploration of the self, as a trans person, I find it to often be a ploy for sympathy and attention when done by people who make such a big life decision shortly after falling off. But whatever makes them happy, I guess. Considering how much of their self-worth was previously derived from the validation their former peers and label artists constantly gave them, I can't imagine how pivoting to identity validation is the best move for their growth as a human being. Finn needs to look inwards, spend some time away from social media, and log off. Changing your name online and the pronouns in your bio is not actually the personality introspection that many in Gen Z think that it is. It's clear that Finn has problems with addiction, given their aggression towards their own girlfriend when they tried to hit their vape pen. So perhaps a rehab center would be more appropriate for the procyon. Just please, don't attempt to return with another business idea. I'm begging you. Instead of coming up with new schemes on how to best monetize other people's talent, try instead to develop something creative yourself. Maybe learn an instrument or some other artistic skill. Discover what it means to be proud of work that you made and that you own, not just work you slapped your name onto. I'm glad the fandom finally opened its eyes to Finn's lack of business acumen, ongoing personal issues, and financial mismanagement. Now let's just make sure that the content-making furries with big platforms don't try to sell us on their friend's third exciting business opportunity. Anyway, that about does it for me, I think. Thank you all for watching. I know it's another furry drama video, but man, it's been exciting watching so many precariously perched furs come tumbling down this year, or last year. Depends when this video goes up. Hopefully during 2024, biding my time for so long on calling out so many of these individuals has really been a test of my resolve. But at least now the record shows that I've been right a lot more often than I've been wrong. A special thanks to my patrons, as always, for supporting the outspoken Civet in all her endeavors. It means the world to me, and I recommend anyone who is remotely a fan of mine to hop on there. All patrons get their names in the credits of my videos, too. Woo! I also have a new Telegram updates channel that you can hop into as well. Your support makes my 2025 plans that much bigger, with more cons and more music hopefully on the way. Thank you all so much again. It's been a crazy year, but now it's time for a new year with a clean slate. I wonder if I'll ever make a short video on the fandom ever again. Who knows? Anywho, it's time to go. Check out that bonus content, and I'll see you lovely folks in the next video. Mwah! Bye! Thanks for watching!